Yes, guys, we are back with the Summer Diaries episode 7, and this one is going to be all about finishing the fucking diet. I've noticed lately a bit of a trend amongst my clients, typically clients who I've been working with for a decent amount of time. They've graduated various bits of the program, so we've gone through the mobilization phase, the first 6 weeks of the program. We've gone through acceleration, which tends to be 3 to 4 months to build on the foundational habits that we establish in the mobilization phase, achieve even better results. And at that point, there's a choose your own adventure fork in the road. A lot of guys that I work with have hit their fat loss goals by that point. They're feeling lean, mean, athletic, fit and strong, and they want a new challenge or a new goal, which typically is about strength gain, muscle gain, hypertrophy. And for them, we move into enlightenment. But for the other cohort of my clients at that point, they still have fat that they want to lose. They still want to get leaner. They've got a weight in mind or a physique in mind that they haven't yet achieved. And for them, we move into the focus phase. The focus phase I have historically called the last ever hard diet. The reason for that is I want to help somebody get to a level of leanness that means that any fat loss phase they do in future is a maximum of 8 weeks, and not only the duration, it feels much simpler, much easier because you've gone through the process of getting lean once and for all. And when you reach that point, you can keep your body fat within a range, you can relax a little bit, you can eat more. And if you gain a little bit of body fat, which is inevitable now and then, such as over holidays, Christmas, or if you're intentionally being assertive with your eating to give yourself the best chance of gaining some muscle, you are inevitably going to gain a little bit of body fat as well. But that becomes very low stress because you know that all it's going to take is a quick fat loss phase for you to diet it off again. The thing that I have noticed is that this is also the point at which clients are most at risk of becoming demotivated, jaded, and then drifting away from the process, drifting away from the habits and the hard work that have got them to the point of actually being in the focus phase at all. And the real risk there is that it leads to drift, which leads to regression and can lead somebody to end up back where they started 6 months later. So today I'm going to talk about why we go through that process and why it's so important to actually finish the fat loss phase and come out of it, and why the true transformation you are looking for is actually on the other side of that. The joy, the fun is all waiting for you on the other side of finishing the focus phase and the fat loss diet once and for all. Now, it's kind of logical that this happens, right? Because first 4 months, 5 months, you're emotionally invested, motivation is high, you get some early wins, and make sure that that is a big part of the program to build that emotional investment and reinforce your motivation. And I liken it to the idea of having a migraine. So when you sign up for a program, whether it's with me or with somebody else, you're really motivated to make a change because you've got the equivalent of a migraine. It might be you're really pissed off with what you see in the mirror, you feel really unfit, and you really want to, really want to fix that problem. And I give you a headache pill. And that headache pill means the migraines go away. The migraine going away is akin to you losing 10 kilograms of body fat, let's say. You feel leaner, you feel happier, you feel healthier, but you're still getting nagging headaches. It's just that they're less persistent and less intense. Maybe it's when you can't fit into your favorite jeans and there's still a bit, you're still squeezing into them at the waist, and then you have a large meal and then you have to undo the button on top while you're out in a restaurant. Maybe it's you catch a glimpse of yourself in the gym mirror and you think, fuck's sake, I've still got 10, 20 kilograms of body fat that I want to lose to really feel proud of my physique. Maybe it's seeing a photo. But the thing is, it comes and goes. It's not all the time. At that point, lots of people just learn to live with it. And that's what I mean. Lots of people compound that by then staying in a kind of pseudo-caloric deficit where they're trying to lose the fat, but not with the level of focus it needs, which means that maybe they're in a bit of a deficit, not enough to see any decent progress. They're then impacting on their cognitive health and their mental health and their clarity and their sharpness of thought. by being in a caloric deficit. Their performance at the gym is kind of stagnating because they're not doing one thing or another properly. They're just kind of in this grey zone. You've made visible progress. The urgency has gone away. You no longer have the migraine. Maybe you get a bit fatigued or bored of tracking or managing your nutrition, or real life hits. And that is when motivation drops and drift happens. So logically, it makes sense that it's at this point. And realistically, I've been in a position where I had to lose maybe 10, 15 kilograms, but I don't know what it's like to want to lose 30 kilograms. I know that it can be hard and it can be drawn out. My goal is to make it as efficient, easy, simple, and enjoyable as it possibly can be for every client. But if that's going to take 6 months, then it is understandable that somebody's motivation would drop. But the reason this is important, and the reason I am making an impassioned pledge with my clients and on this podcast and elsewhere to actually get the fat loss phase done once and for all, is because, like I said earlier, true transformation and what you wanted all along is waiting on the other side of achieving that goal. Because imagine a future where you do not have to stress about choosing a healthy salad while you're out for pizza with the kids, or how to factor in a couple of beers with your mates on a Friday night after work into your weekly caloric deficit, or simply having a week off from tracking and maybe even gaining a little bit of body fat, but being okay with that because you know that it's all part of the longer, wider process. And all of the fun that comes from keeping up the training, but optimizing it and fine-tuning it for hypertrophy, eating more with more flexibility, and then noticing your body change in all of these new ways, in that you're lean, so it's even more noticeable, but your chest's popping, your arms are growing, your shoulders are getting wider, your frame is changing to that V shape, that lean athletic shape that we are striving for. All of that is waiting for you on the other side of finishing the fat loss. And what frustrates me is when clients end up drifting at that point before achieving all of the joy that comes with that. Because, to use myself as an example of both extremes, right? In my 30s, after I'd made a bit of progress, I'd started going to the gym and everything else. I was doing okay, but I then stayed in a caloric deficit, pseudo fat loss phase for like 3 years. I had all the overhead of tracking what I was eating and weighing vegetables and all of the shit that I talk about as the antithesis of the anti-diet method. I was also doing a bit of the tracking grey zone, like I talked about in the last podcast, where I would like not track at weekends and then wonder why I wasn't making progress. But it wasn't inconvenient enough for me to do one thing properly or another. And I was scared of kind of going into a gaining phase or intentionally eating more because I hadn't achieved the level of leanness that I wanted to. I was in purgatory, dietary and training purgatory. And that was impacting on my relationships because I would say no to social stuff and exclude myself from things of drinking alcohol and stuff like that, or takeaways, meals out. It was impacting on my cognition and therefore my work, my other roles in life, because I was in a caloric deficit. Not enough to see any progress with the fat loss, but enough that it was impacting on my clarity and my sense of control and autonomy and energy for life. And that was just a shit way to live. And I stayed in that mode for 3 years. So do not be me. The diet, the fat loss phase, has to have a start and it has to have an end. I was speaking to one of my one-to-one mastery clients a couple of weeks ago, and they said, I pointed out that the calories they were on now is not the calories they'll be on forever, and that over time, the goal of finishing the fat loss and then reverse dieting over the course of 1 to 2 months means that we find your maintenance range, which can be 500, 800, sometimes even up to 1,000 calories more than what you've been eating and deep into a fat loss phase. And they were like, oh yeah, I didn't think of that. I've been of the mindset that I'm going to have to be at 1,600 calories forever. No, that has to end. And the way that we do that is we reverse diet. So we take it slow and steady and get you more confident eating more food and show you that eating more is a good thing and is not going to lead to fat gain because we do it intentionally. And physically, that makes it a bit easier too, so that you're not suddenly launching into forcing yourself to eat 600, 800 extra calories a day. But we find your maintenance range so that you are properly fueling your body, your brain, and everything else, which means that you can be your best in your job, with your family, in your relationships, your other goals and your other projects, as well as make the best possible progress in your training. And then if you want to push it a bit higher to gain some muscle or give yourself the best chance of doing that, you can do that from a lean base. And the flexibility that comes with that is amazing. Like eating 2,500 calories a day, we still follow the anti-diet method. We still track it. We still do that flexibly. But imagine how much more you can get away with, so to speak, eating that much compared to being in a caloric deficit. That's why the fat loss phase has to end. Don't get stuck in diet mode forever. So that's the one extreme that I was in. Now let me give you the other extreme of where I am now and why this is such a good place to be. So first half of this year, I did not track my diet at all. And the reason for that is I was dealing with some injuries that thankfully I'm now largely done with, and where they're not, they're still manageable. But it was just one thing too many. I didn't want to have to think about tracking and all of that and trying to like be healthy on top of rehab and constantly thinking about the injuries and the mobility work and everything else. So I just stopped doing it. And I would still make largely healthy choices, but I knew I was eating more than I needed, especially as my training was like loads of shitty little cable movements all day, every day, 6 days a week, and then occasionally I would get to do some back and biceps. I knew I was overeating. I knew I was gaining a bit of body fat, but I was kind of enjoying the nutrition, and it felt kind of nice to not have to worry about it or think about it, given that psychologically the injuries were impacting on my mental health so much because I couldn't train properly. I felt fragile. I felt like I did not trust my body at all. That gave me a release, and it gave me an outlet that was kind of enjoyable. And I gained maybe 5 kilograms of body fat. And if you've not done the focus phase or the fat loss phase or you've got lean, gaining 5 kilograms is stressful, very stressful. Because you're like, I'm going backwards. I'm not making progress towards my goal. For me, it was like, it's okay. When the time is right, I will diet it off again. I will do a quick fat loss phase and I will get lean again. And then when the injuries eased up and I got back into regular training, which I'm delighted to say I'm now able to train hard 4 or more days a week, I started focusing more on my nutrition again. And I started following the anti-diet method again. I started tracking what I was eating again. And I decided, start of July, maybe it was, to just do a quick fat loss phase. And I think I've dropped like 4 kilograms. I've been on holiday since, and then I haven't really been following a diet since then because just didn't want to. But I'm 6-pack lean again at a higher body weight than I was previously, which just shows you the freedom, the nutritional freedom that comes from finishing the fat loss phase and then knowing that if you need to do short fat loss diets in future, it's going to be easy and simple. But not only that, the freedom that comes from just saying, I'm not going to worry about my diet for the next 3 months. And if I gain a bit of body fat, that's okay. Contrast that to somebody who is stuck in diet mode or fat loss mode and they're not making the progress they want to, but they're stuck and they're not doing the other thing either, or doing another, or following another protocol or having another goal. To gain body fat in that situation is shit because you haven't got to the level of leanness that gives you that level of confidence. That's what I mean by getting to the other side and the true transformation and what you wanted all along being there. Because so many of my friends, and sometimes clients ask me this as well, say to me, how come you're just like eating whatever you want? How come you're drinking 6 pints? By the way, it's very rare that I drink 6 pints. Maybe at Christmas when I meet my mates and we watch some football, but sometimes it happens. How do you like stay lean? Or I thought you were a fitness coach. Like, why are you just eating like pizza and having a few beers? And like I say to them, it's because I've done it. I've done the fat loss. I'm like in a position where I have nutritional freedom. And yeah, I still have to manage it and I make healthy choices, but I do that because they're aligned to how I want to live. I do that because they're aligned to doing the things that I know make me feel good. I would not feel good if I just ate shit and drank alcohol every day. But when I do want to do those things, it's intentional and there is nothing to regret and there is nothing to fear. And that is the same for my clients who have gone through the focus phase, finished it, and they're now in enlightenment or mastery, and we're working together and they're eating more food. They're noticing their body changing in all of these exciting new ways. They're not regaining fat. And even if they have regained a little bit of fat, say after a holiday, They're so confident they can just do a quick diet and get rid of it again, and then get back to spending most of their time eating way more food with way more flexibility, pushing the training hard, and just realizing all of the wonderful benefits that come from that. And then you can also focus on other areas of your life that you might want to improve on as well. Like, I've got clients who have left their jobs and gone freelance, or started businesses, or changed career, or had those difficult conversations with their partner or a family member that they've been putting off for years. And the reason they have been able to do that was because they had the headspace, the clarity, and the freedom that comes from finishing the fat loss phase, getting lean once and for all, and knowing that it's done. And that maintaining it, whilst maintaining it can be a bit of a difficult challenge and it's a bit ambiguous, we work through that together. And over the course of several months, you realize I have the confidence now that this is my new normal. What we want to make sure is that you have a new normal, and your new normal is the leaner, athletic physique that you worked so hard for. All of that is waiting for you on the other side of finishing the fucking diet. And that is the difference between drifting and finishing. What I've just described is finishing. That's what you get. Drifting is knowing it's still important to you, but not giving it the focus that means that you get it done. And what I've noticed is 3 different types of drift. The first type is someone who says, I know what I need to do now to lose fat. I'm just going to do it. But what I see is that maybe they stop checking in so much, or they kind of like follow their own thing for a little bit, and the results are slower than they need to be, which means they're in the focus phase and they're in the fat loss and they're in the caloric deficit for longer than they need to be. For those clients, or if that is you, what I would recommend doing is setting mini challenges, doing like a month or 2 weeks or whatever, where you're like, okay, we're within a few kilograms of you achieving your goal. We are now going to nail it and make it happen. Because what I've noticed is there is a few clients who stay maybe 5 kilograms or less away from how lean they want to be, but they take a really long time to actually get there, or they don't get there, or they stay plateaued at that slightly higher level of body fat that they want. And it's because of the sense of, well, I know what to do, I just need to do it. But without the sense of urgency, you could get stuck in that position for way longer than you need to. Second type, and this is by far the most common, is somebody whose results slow down and they become demotivated. So feeling tired, feeling stuck, energy is flat. And there is a sense that they will never get where they want to, which is really, really understandable. Because, like I said at the start, if you have a lot of body fat you want to lose, or results slow down, progress slows down, it is difficult to keep yourself focused and keep yourself motivated. But there are things we can do to overcome that. So firstly, I would say, if that's you, realigning on shorter term targets is really helpful. So within the focus phase, as I've just rebuilt it this week, we will be working in 8-week sprints. So we're going to set 8-week targets, which are going to be based around what's realistic for you. But I break that down further and go 4 weeks. Okay, over this 4 weeks period, what do I want to achieve? Because what I notice with a lot of these clients or a lot of these guys is that the results are slow and they're feeling a bit demotivated. But when I check their consistency with either their training or their nutrition or both, they're not where they need to be. And that's why results have slowed down. So it's not that something has happened to their body that have stopped them getting results, but they're just finding it harder to stick to than they were previously. Probably a bit of fatigue, mental fatigue. A break for a week or 2 can really help with this to really freshen things up. Some novelty can really help. So really changing up the workouts or trying a new nutrition plan, like trying a new fasting protocol, a new way of approaching the fat loss nutrition could be really helpful here. So novelty is a good tool to use here. And another is just remembering how far you've come already. So thinking of the concept of gap versus gain and not obsessing over the gap between where you are and where you want to get to, but the gain from where you are now all the way back to where you started and all the ways in which you have changed, not only physically, but mentally, emotionally, your identity, your actions, behaviors, and everything else that you've built up over the course of several months, just to reinforce that motivation and show you that actually you're not that far away. We just need to get this finished. And then you will have a sense of accomplishment and of finishing what you started and not leaving unfinished business. And the third type is the quiet drifter. So this is where someone slowly fades away, stops checking in, disengages a little bit, not doing the workout so much, still responding to messages and still seeming positive, but clearly something has changed. And what I see is that it's often somebody believing they can't do it now because of life kicking their ass in some way. Work, family, commitments, social stuff, whatever. This is the most difficult one, really, because there are very few cases, but there are a few where that is true, and I accept somebody might say, I just can't do it because of work, and they will give me the reason. I'm like, oh yeah, that actually makes sense. But even then, we can still set you up for success if that looks like 1 to 2 workouts a week, supplemented with some home HIIT workouts, supplemented with just focusing on protein and plants with your nutrition. There's always a way of you feeling more in control. And the reason that drift happens is because you feel out of control. So here, the key is helping you find more autonomy and control with these things that you can control in your life, especially when other things in your life are crazy, like work, for example, or family, dealing with stuff with your kids. Really important to help you control the controllable, to show you that actually you have way more influence over the direction of your life than you might feel at times when things feel helpless. So setting you up for success, making things simpler when it comes to your training and or your nutrition, and even the check-in process. I have a busy backup plan protocol that I use with clients, which means the check-in is sporadic. We can take you out of some of the other processes to reduce kind of overwhelm and noise and things like that. All of those things are possible. And I would much rather somebody keeps going, even if it's just doing 1 to 2 workouts a week and just doing their best with nutrition, checking in once a month in a way that we agree. And then in 2 months' time, you feel like, oh, I'm actually in control here. And okay, I've only maintained my weight or maybe lost a kilogram, but I'm still here and I'm still going. And I know now things have settled down. I can really get after it now. That is a much better outcome than I can't do this now because of work. And then drifting. And then you find in 6 months that you're back where you started before we started working together. And then we need to start at the mobilization phase again. And all of this is why I'm making such an impassioned case for finishing the fat loss phase and finishing the diet once and for all. So I think at the start, it's about motivation and results. Then it becomes about purpose and meaning. It's about the deeper emotional reasons why this matters to you. So realigning on your vision for what you want to achieve in your life, not just physique, but how your physique goals and your fat loss goals can be a vehicle for you achieving the other things you want to in your life. You do not want to lose 10 kilograms so that you can step on the scale and it's be 10 kilograms lower than it was 2 months ago. It's for what that gives you. And what that gives you is usually some combination of self-belief, confidence, and identity. So people often say, I want to take my top off by the pool and not feel self-conscious during the summer. Confidence. Or I want my kids to see me as a positive role model who looks after themselves. Identity. And I think it's about the way in which your physique and you having achieved something remarkable with your fat loss tells you and tells other people that you are a man who takes yourself seriously, but not too seriously, who follows through on the things you say you are going to do, and who shows up as the best version of yourself. That's ultimately what the fat loss is giving you. And there might be other words around that resonate more with you, but that's what I hear from people. And they're the real reasons why. And that's what I mean about purpose and meaning. It's not about fat loss. We've got to lose the fat. It's about why that matters and what that gives you. So what will finishing the fat loss phase give you that quitting won't? Quitting will give you stuck in a loop, not following the goal, a bit aimless, drifting. Finishing will give you all of those wonderful benefits that I talked about earlier. So purpose, meaning, why does it matter? What is your vision for yourself and your life? And how does finishing the fat loss phase actually support those goals? I've reflected all of this into the Mind and Matter method this week because it just became a theme over the last month and I saw it happening. And what I've done is changed all the check-in processes. So there are different questions which are designed to be more evocative of the things I've just talked about. I've created some specific content around the idea of what we are looking to achieve within Focus, why it matters, why finishing it is so important and what that gives you, including this podcast. and some content around the concept of drifting versus finishing and reaching the finish line. I've given incentives to my clients for finishing the fat loss phase, some cool prices that are not available anywhere else, and I'm doing more. So potentially looking at the idea of mini challenges or something to keep motivation high. I'm definitely keen on clients setting performance related goals at this point, along with physique related goals, so that the focus is not solely on like scale weight or waist measurement, but on all of the other wonderful benefits that training hard gives you, so like improvements to your fitness, hitting PRs in the gym, getting stronger. It's not all about the fat loss, but if you focus on the kind of athletic qualities that you're also working on, it just keeps your motivation high and makes it more fun. And we also use a lot of kind of complexes and circuits and intensity techniques here to keep the metabolism going. Definitely encourage clients to focus more on their step count and on making sure they're doing weekly cardio, because those things just make the whole process much simpler, much easier, much smoother, much more efficient. So there's lots we are doing. There's lots of ways in which I'm improving the program to reflect the data and the feedback and the experiences of clients. Many of my clients have finished the fat loss phase, finished the focus phase, and they're going on to the fun stuff. A few have got stuck in limbo, and that's on me to help them solve. And that's why I'm making such an impassioned case here for getting it done and moving on to a bigger, brighter future. See you later.